Hi there, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much. I don't take it for granted. Remember to subscribe to this channel. I want to talk about qualities of a good assessment. The last two videos I've spoken about assessment, and it's important for us to get to understand what then are the qualities of a good assessment. Now, as you develop your assessment tools, get to know that number one, the assessment tool should be aligned to the curriculum's learning outcomes and competencies, and you need to have clear rubrics and criteria for assessment. I will repeat that. Aligned to the curriculum learning outcomes and competencies, you need to have clear rubrics and assessment criteria. When I say learning outcomes, I'm talking about, by the end of the learning of this learning area, by the end of the substrand or strand, the learners should be able to achieve one or two things. After they achieve these things, how are you going to document this? How are you going to record this? When I talk of a rubric, remember a rubric is an assessment tool. It is one of the many assessment tools that we have in the competency-based curriculum. And there should be you need to have an assessment criteria. Just to give an example, maybe you are talking about sources of water, and then you say, in my rubric, I will award scores as below. Maybe you say the learner named all the sources of water, so your assessment criteria will be 4 if the pupil was able to name 4. So the name all. If the pupil names 4, automatically they get a 4. If the pupil names most of the sources of water, the score gets to 3. If the pupil mentions maybe some, we've started with all, most, and then some gets 3. If a pupil mentions 1, or with guidance from the facilitator, the pupil was able to mention 1 source of water, that one comes to 1. So we have said you need to have clear rubrics, assessment criteria that must be aligned to the learning outcome. What is the objective of that particular strand? That is point number 1. Number 2, a good assessment tool should test the knowledge, skill, value, and attitude. In other words, I'm saying you need to test what the learner knows, what the learner understands, and what the learner can do. Very important. Point number 3, the assessment needs to be transparent. It should not be biased. It should be meaningful and responsive to all the learners. When I say all the learners, remember our classes are very diverse. We have children who are gifted and talented. We have the high achievers, we have the average, and we have the low achievers. So your assessment tool should take care of all the needs of these learners. This is very, very important, and your assessment needs to be fair enough so that you are able to take care of all these learners. Another point, assessment should have a collection of information of previous assessment of the learners, In other words, we are saying assessment is continuous. And when we say it's continuous, like in the competency-based curriculum, we say assessment is done during the lesson, after the lesson, and maybe at the end of a given period, which we can call summative in this case. So make sure your assessment is continuous. It's not a one-off thing. It has to be continuous. A good assessment also should be collaborative. It should be collaborative, where you take care of communication and collaboration as a competence in the competency-based curriculum. You need to ensure there is that communication. You need to ensure you are able to assess children or learners. Either we have a peer assessment, it can be group work, it can be pair work. So involve these kinds of assessment. Another important thing that I must mention, as you are assessing, make sure you take care of the competencies. Competencies need to be assessed. And when I talk about competencies, I'm talking about communication and collaboration, digital literacy, critical thinking and problem solving. We have imagination and creativity. We also have learning to learn. I hope I've mentioned all. If not, you'll be able to find out. These are very, very crucial things that you must assess in any form of assessment. So they may not come out directly that you are assessing this, but they must be there. Some of these things come out indirectly. They may not be as conspicuous as other people may expect, but they must be there in any assessment tool. You can just analyze some of the NEC assessment papers that have been done previously, and just try to identify what are these competencies. Go through the projects, go through the other written tests, and you should be able to tell. So I believe I have mentioned just the key areas that we should be able to guide you when you are coming up with assessment, so that we come up with the best assessment tools as we interact with these learners, so as to achieve the learning outcomes. Thank you so much for your time. It was nice having you. Remember to subscribe, give this video some likes, and share wide with your friends and pals. Thank you so much.